Hello cardboard lovers, it's Cardboard Badger here. I hope you're doing well, and today we have for you a brand new budget Commander deck tech. We are going to be cooking food and making a huge amount of squirrels with one of the commanders from Bloomburrow, the best set from 2024. I will introduce you to the commander so we can get a theme for exactly what is happening with this deck before we look at a selection of the creature spells, of which there are 28 creatures, and then afterwards a selection of the non-creature spells and then the mana base. So you get a feel for exactly what this deck can do, how they work together, but obviously not in its entirety. If you would like the entire deck tech with the pricing, while I actually put the whole thing together, I will put a link in the description below so you can check out every single card. So we shall look at the commander. We have Camellia The Seedmiser for 3 mana, 1 black-green. We have legendary creature Squirrel Warlock, 3/3 with menace, and other squirrels you control have menace. In addition to that, whenever you sacrifice 1 or more foods, create a 1/1 green squirrel creature token. Important to point out, it is a green squirrel. Also, for 2 mana, you can forage. You can put a +1/+1 counter on each other squirrel you control. And obviously, to forage, we exile 3 cards from our graveyard, which is something we are going to be rarely doing, or we sacrifice a food. And that is the thing we are going to be doing many, many times indeed. So the important theme is to produce a huge amount of food. We need that food so we can cook up a load of stuff to feed our squirrels, make more squirrels, and have a ginormous army, which is a world of fun and is possible thanks to a lot of the creature cards that are not squirrels but support exactly what we want to do. These include Gilded Goose, enabling us to gain a food token, and for 2 mana tap and create more food, and sacking food to sort out our mana. Ginger Brute, a food on its own that we can sack and is unblockable unless opponents have creatures with haste, and Tough Cookie, a 2 mana food that produces another food, and for 3 mana we can turn a piece of that food into a 4/4 artifact creature. We also have Tireless Provisioner with the landfall trigger. Every time a land comes in, we are going to create a food or a treasure token. And Peregrine Took, a 3 mana halfling citizen with, if 1 or more tokens would be created under your control, those tokens plus an additional food token are created instead. And we also have Pippin, Warden of Isengard. We have a halfling advisor, which for 1 mana and tap it can create an additional food token. We also have Ivy Lane Denizen, who cares about when another green creature enters the battlefield under your control. We can put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. All our food that we sack will produce green 1/1 squirrels, and then we will be able to pump them up thanks to the Ivy Lane Denizen. But somewhere we need to pump it up to is the Scurry Oak. We have a tree folk with, whenever 1 or more +1/+1 counters are put on Scurry Oak, you may create a 1/1 green squirrel creature token. So this is obviously going to produce an infinite combo. We get a +1 counter, we put it on the oak, we make a squirrel. That squirrel is green, Ivy Lane Denizen, and it will go backwards and forwards. And from these 2 cards, we will have, if our commander is out, an absolute army. And alongside that, we've got Greta, Sweet Tooth Scourge. We've got a human warrior with green, and we can sack a food and also put a +1 counter on target creature, activating only as a sorcery, another card that is going to support the mighty Scurry Oak. So let's have a look at some of the squirrels in this deck. It includes the Vine Trap Mentor, a squirrel that when it dies and also enters, you create a food token. We've also got Thornvault Forager, Squirrel Ranger. You can tap it for green mana, you can tap it and forage and add 2 mana in any combination of colours, and for 4 mana and tap it, you can go and search your library for the squirrel that you really need. And also we have got Osteomancer Adept. We have a 2 mana Squirrel Warlock, and with this one we can tap it and forage and go find a dead squirrel from our graveyard and bring it back to life. We also have Squirrel Sovereign, a Squirrel Noble with the Anthem. For other squirrels you control get +1/+1, making all our tokens instantly 2/2s. We've got Honoured Dray Leader. It's a Squirrel Warrior. It's only a 1/1 with Trample, but when it enters, it gets a +1 pack counter for each squirrel and food you control, and it gets an additional +1/+1 counter every time a new squirrel or food enters the battlefield. And in addition to that, we've got the Mighty Valley Rockcaller, Squirrel Warlock. And when this attacks, you gain life, and opponents each lose life equal to the number of squirrels, bats, lizards, and rats you control. We also have a selection of squirrels that are going to support our card draw. Although we do have lots of ways of sacking food to gain cards, these squirrels are an additional help. And they include Bone Cache Overseer. We've got a Squirrel Warlock. You can tap it, pay 1 life and draw a card. And we have the Odd Acorn Gang. It's got Menace, Trample and Reach, and it's a 5/5. And we can tap our squirrels, and target squirrel gains +2/+2 and gains Trample until the end of turn. So we can tap 10 squirrels and have an additional 20/20 on it. These squirrels can be massive. And whenever one or more squirrels you control deal combat damage to a player, you can draw a card. Next, we're going to be looking at our non-creature spells. If we have any issues with our mana, we're going to be using cards such as Heaped Harvest, Many Partings, and Return from the Wild. So we can go and search for a basic land while also gaining food. Plus even more food, such as 3 bowls of porridge, Lembus, which we can sacrifice and shuffle it back into our library so we can keep using this food, and also Candy Trail, as well as additional ways that we can make even more squirrels, such as the enchantment Squirrel Sanctuary and also Cloakwood Hermit. And of course Squirrel Nest, enchanting a land and tapping it to create a 1/1 green squirrel creature token. As far as removal goes, that is also themed. We have got Feed the Cauldron. Destroy target creature with mana value 3 or less and we create a food. We've got Bake into a Pie, destroying target creature and creating food, and also Stew the Connies, a rabid bite basically, but also gaining us an additional food. Artifacts in this deck include, and are still on theme, the Underworld Cookbook. For 1 mana we have an artifact, we can tap it, discarding a card and creating a food token. Of course we've got Witch's Oven, so we can do some cooking, sacking a creature, creating a food, and obviously we're going to be creating multiple foods every time we use this, depending on which creatures are out. And even more token production, we have got Transmutation Font, 5 mana artifact. We can tap it, creating a choice of a blood token, clue token, or a food token. And finally, some cards which are really enjoyable to play in this deck. We've got Knight of the Sweet's Revenge, 4 mana enchantment. When it enters, we create a food token, and foods you control have tapped to add 1 green mana. For 7 mana, 5 green. We can sacrifice this enchantment, and creatures you control get +X/+X until end of turn, where X is the number of foods you control. We also have Killer Service, 3 mana enchantment. When it enters the battlefield, create a number of food tokens equal to the number of opponents you have. And at the beginning of your end step, you can pay 2, sacking a token. And if you do, you create a 4/4 green Rhino Warrior creature token. And finally, if we happen to want everything to come back from our graveyard, we've got Lich Knight's Conquest, 5 mana sorcery. Sacrifice any number of artifacts, enchantments and or tokens and return that many creature cards from your graveyard to the battlefield. And finally we have the mana base. We have 34 lands, we have 27 basic lands and 7 non-basic, and from those 7 non-basic it includes Oak Hollow Village. We can tap it for colourless mana, tap it for 1 green if you want to cast a creature spell, and green and tap it and put a +1 counter on each frog, rabbit, raccoon or squirrel you control that entered the battlefield this turn. We also have Rogue's Passage and Mudflat Village. We can tap this for colourless mana, tap it for 1 black mana to cast a creature spell, and 1 and black. We can sacrifice this and return one of our squirrels from the graveyard back to our hand. So there we have it. That is the entire budget Commander deck tech. $35. Camellia The Seedmiser. Obviously, we didn't touch on every single card as that would take a long time, but as mentioned earlier on, if you would like the entire deck tech for this, I will have a link in the description below and you will be able to see every single card and the prices at the time of me putting this deck together. If you do put this together in some shape or form, I hope you enjoy it. It is a world of fun. Let me know if you've changed anything up, what you put in and why. I would love your versions of this deck. And if you've enjoyed this and it's helped you in any way whatsoever, please like, share, subscribe, do all the usual business. It will help out the channel hugely. Thank you in advance. And other than that, all I'd like to say is thanks for watching, people, and we'll see you again soon here on Cardboard Badger.